Where do I start my wave count? That is the most frequent question I'm always asked. The moment that people start learning the Elliott Wave Principle, they open up a chart and immediately they see the chaos. They wonder, where should I start counting? They go through weeks of data, sometimes months of data, sometimes even years of data to find out, where do I start counting? From the low of 2008 or from the crash of 2020? Maybe from last week's low? Where do I start? And all those questions are extremely valid. And the answers are actually obvious when you understand the logic behind the wave principle. People get paralyzed trying to find the perfect absolute starting point, and well, they get frustrated, so they give up, because why is it correct to start counting from this low and not from this one? And why from this low and not from this one? And so forth and so on. Or why from this high and not from this one? And they are correct, they are right. But you will see that the answer is actually obvious. And some people say, actually, in the community, there was a question that says, the answer I always get is from a meaningful low or a meaningful high. And that answer is not incorrect, but it has to be within some context. And that is the context that we are going to explore. My name is Aldo Lagrutta, and I'm a certified financial technician and a certified Elliott Wave analyst. And in this video, we are going to answer the definite way to how to approach a chart and decide, where do I start counting in a way that makes sense? So let's go to a normal chart and we'll discuss the nuances of this. Here is a blank chart. So let's begin by drawing the typical 5-wave move that is always known in the wave principle, right? You know, there is wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So we put the labels at the top of the wave, like here in the case of wave 1, not at the bottom. So 1, then here the extreme of the wave 2, the extreme of wave 3, and then 4, and then 5. And this is an impulse wave. In order to qualify as an impulse wave, it needs to follow certain mathematical rules that we will discuss in another video. But for the moment, let's focus on where to start the count. The important thing to know about this structure is that waves 1, 3, and 5 are all motive waves. That means that they are all moving in the direction of the trend, and as such should develop in 5 waves. So when we see this entire move here that we see here, when we see the microscopic way of wave 1, we should see exactly this same 5-wave move. In other words, wave 1 would be subdivided like this, exactly as this large move. And the same thing applies to wave 3. It will be subdivided exactly like this in 5 waves, exact like this big one. And the wave 5 will be exactly the same way, subdivided into 5 waves, precisely as the larger one. So as the macrocosm is the microcosm. So the question is, when we see 5 waves, let's say that we actually see these large 5 waves, right? So when we see this, do we know if this is the 5 waves of wave 1? Do we know if these are the 5 waves of wave 3? Do we know if these are the 5 waves of wave 5? So as you can see, these 5 waves can be wave 1, can be wave 3, and can be wave 5. And when we speak about corrections, the corrections also have a particular formula. For instance, when we see a zigzag usually takes this shape. So it goes like, it's labeled as an A, B, C. This would be the A, this would be the B, and this one would be the C. So here again we have 5 waves in wave A, and we have 5 waves in wave C. So again, do we have 5 waves? And when we see the 5 waves alone, we can say, well, that could be wave 1, it could be wave 3, It could be wave 5. It could be wave A. It could be wave C. It could be different things for different context. So, and this is only with a zigzag, right? But there are other corrections. Let's talk about another of the typical corrections, which is called flat. A flat takes this shape A, B, and wave C, guess what? Also subdivides in 5. So we label this structure as A, this one will be B, and this one will be C. Again, we have 5 waves. If this is all we see, then we would know, well, it could be a wave C of a zigzag. It could be a wave A of a zigzag. It could be a wave 5 of an impulse. It could be a wave 3 of an impulse. It could be a wave 1 of an impulse. So as you can see, 5 waves alone could be many things. Therefore, when we simply see 5 waves, we cannot take a conclusion. We cannot arrive to any conclusion that is helpful, because we lack of what? We would lack of context. So let me give you an example here. So let's take this particular case. Okay, what I'm looking at here is the S&P 500, the spot one. So let's say that we want to label this. Okay, let's take this and we say, well, this is wave 1, wave 2, wave 3, wave 4, and wave 5. You can see it clearly there. You can basically see that the market goes up, goes down, up again, down, and up, making the exact same drawing that we were discussing before. So that's how we see 5 waves. But these 5 waves are where? Are these the 5 waves of wave 1? It could be. Are these the 5 waves of a wave 3? Well, it could be the first 5 waves of a wave 3. So are these the 5 waves of a wave 5? Well, apparently not, because we have all this before. So this by itself could help us realize that this cannot be those 5 waves of a wave 5. But could it be that these are let's say that this is an A, B, C of that flat that we discussed? It could be. But then we need to see that this would be a flat. But then, in what context? A flat must be a correction, but corrections are only wave 2s or 4. So in order for us to gain real context and know exactly where to start counting, in this case, for instance, we could say, well, we could start counting from here because it's a meaningful low. Sure, it is. Well, it makes more sense to start counting from here than to start counting from here, right? But you may be wondering, well, why don't we start counting from here? Well, yeah, it would make sense as well. But when you start counting from here, you probably would see only 3 waves up, right? But when you start counting from here, you can see there are clearly 5 waves. So here is one answer. Where do you start counting? Well, from the place where you can see a structure that you recognize. So when you see a chart, when you open up that chart, as we were discussing in the beginning, when you open up a chart, and instead of looking at the chart and be paralyzed at the chaos that you have in front of you, you have to wonder, you have to ask yourself, is there a structure that I recognize? For instance, today we discussed the 5-wave move, we discussed zigzag, and we discussed flats. Are there any of those patterns that I recognize inside this apparent chaos? And remember that there are only 13 structures. This is not something that requires a tremendous memory and tremendous geometrical mind and mathematical abilities or skills. No, not at all. This is extremely simple. Only 13 patterns that we can discuss in a different video. So in order for us to start counting, well, we start counting from a place where we recognize a structure. In this case, what we recognize clearly, there are 5 waves. And if we were to look inside these 5 waves, let's say again, let's do something. Let's make this count again. Let's say this is a 1, 2, we said that this was a 3, 4, and 5, right? So let's make it a larger degree as when we explained before. Let's say that this is a primary degree. Okay, so now if we remember, we said that wave 1, 5, 3, and 5 all should subdivide into 5 waves, right? Well, typically they don't show those subdivisions in the same time frame. But for instance, in this case, we can see it clearly, because if we start counting now from here, because here is another answer. We want to count the waves of this wave 3. So where do we start? Well, from the bottom of that wave, which is right here, right? So where would that be? Where market formed a bottom, a clear bottom, where market found support, a support that was strong enough as to send prices up. So you would start counting from here. You wouldn't start counting from here or from here. That doesn't make sense. That's why I say it's actually obvious where to start counting, but depends on the context again. So in this case, the context is that we want to know the subwaves of wave 3, right? So we start from the bottom of wave 2. And what do we see? Well, we see a wave 1 up. So since this is a primary, so let's try to do these next waves, the insides of the primary. And you probably remember seeing my other videos that we discussed that those are numbers in parentheses that we call intermediate. So we have here a wave 1, you can see it clearly there. And here is another clear bottom from where prices could not move lower. And well, after that, we see there was a wave 3. And then it was a wave 4. You can see it clearly there, where prices tried to go down but stopped. And then finally a wave 5. A wave 5 of 3. So an intermediate wave 5 of 3. And if you were to go inside the wave 3, where would you start counting? Well, from the bottom of wave 2 again. Again, very, very obvious answer, right? You want to count the waves inside this, well, you start from the bottom. And let's do that. Let's do that so you can have a clear answer to that question. In this case, because they are inside an intermediate wave, we have to use the lower degree. In this case, would be a minor. And based on the information I gave you in the previous videos, you can see that those are single numbers without parentheses. So this would be the 1. You can see prices stopped there, tried to move down and couldn't. So this would be the wave 2. And then we will have the wave 3 right here, where prices could not continue. And then, of course, wave 4. And finally, wave 5. In this case, wave 5 of intermediate 3. And this would be intermediate wave 5 of primary 3. So as you can see now, well, we have labeled this in several degrees, 3 degrees of development, and it became clear where to start counting. But you know what hasn't become clear? These are 5 waves of what, right? And that is the reason why we use multiple time frames. That is the reason why it is imperative for any serious analyst to use multiple time frame analysis. So let's do that. I'm going to walk you very quickly through the analysis of this particular market by going, not only, this is a daily chart, but not only going to the, no, actually we were looking at, let me see what we were looking at. I didn't even notice. This was an hourly chart, okay? But let's try to do this not only by going to the larger one, which would be the typical 4 hours, or the daily, or the weekly. Let's go to the monthly. Let's have a complete view of how the monthly would look like. Okay, so here it is. This is the monthly chart, and you can see, well, you can see a large decline here, right? So where should we start our count? Well, obviously we start from this low, because this would be the meaningful low. But this doesn't give us enough context. So I want to give you even better context to this. Let me go back to this other chart and show you what that context would be. So I'm going to go to a monthly chart here and show you, if we go like this was the low that we started in the other chart. But what if we continue lower? You know, there are other lows, like this one. Should we start there? Well, what if it starts here? Well, why don't we continue from here or there? So we continue until we find a meaningful one, right? A one that makes sense. So let's look at this under a different perspective. Now we have something that completely makes sense. And look, this is the low of 1930, right? Or something like that. And what can we see here? Well, obviously, we could see move up from here. We can see it move up and stopped, and then corrected in 3, like the typical 1, 2. And then we see another move up and another correction in 3. And then another move up, and look, another correction in 3. And then another move up, right? So this becomes very interesting, because now we could label these as waves. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oops, too many waves, right? So we know that this is not a 5-wave move complete. We know that this is a 5-wave move that is still in progress. And since we know that 5 waves tend to have one wave that always extend, then we would label this as, well, let me label it for you. Let's use a larger degree. Remember, we were using primary, intermediate, and minor. Well, now we're going to use a larger degree to talk about a cycle, right? To differentiate from those. Okay, so let's take a larger degree cycle. That's a Roman number, and that would be a wave 1 in that first swing high, right? Then we will have a wave 2. If we take this as a wave 3, then this will be wave 4. So now either wave 5 is in progress, or we have too many waves. So the other possibility is that this is actually a wave 1 of 3. This is wave 2 of 3, this is wave 3 of 3, wave 4 of 3, and this is wave 3 of 3. So let's discuss this. So let's make another count here for the 5 waves. Remember how we said wave 1 should have 5 waves, wave 3 should have 5 waves, wave 5 should have 5 waves? Well, now we have 5 waves here for wave 3. And so let's label them. And because they are the inside of the cycle, we have to use the ones that are below that. So we're going to use the primary waves here. And so the first swing up, that would be the wave 1. Then it will be wave 2 for the next swing down, wave 3 for the next swing up, wave 4, and then wave 5 would be at the top to complete wave 3 cycle. Now, consider the following. We already have context here. We know what to expect. We know we have 5 waves here. In fact, you can see them here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Very, very clean. For this one, we'll have to move to a different time frame, but we're not going to do that because it already passed. So we don't really care about this one, right? So what we care about is what to expect next, not what happened before. We care only about what happened before in terms of the context, right? So now we know what to expect. We know that a wave 3 cycle must be forming there. And we also know that for that to happen, we need 5 waves within the last wave of wave 3 cycle. That would be wave 5 primary. So now what do we care? Well, we care to count from here on. So where do we start our count in the next phase, let's say? Well, we start from where we care, which is this low. And so what to do in this case? Well, sure, we can open the chart like this, sure. Or, well, actually, this is the low, let's say, let's look at this. This is the low of 2009. So since I already have this label, let's go to this chart where we have this low here. And this is, you can see that's the low 2009. And that's the one that we care now for this part of the chart, because this is the part of the chart that is going to help us know what is likely to happen next. So for this, you can see that we have a wave 1, 2, look at the numbers in parentheses, it would be the primary 1, primary 2, then primary 3, primary 4, and primary 5 still in progress. Now for the primary 3, we can see that there are 5 legs there in parentheses. Those are the intermediate one. Will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And for those, for that wave 3 intermediate, we also see the 1 outside parenthesis, 2 outside parentheses. Those are single numbers. Then 3, 4, and 5. All the components of the wave 3 of 3, right? So now, well, we have this clear, and we can see that wave 5 is not complete. We can see only wave 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, well, apparently in progress. So now we have to decide we need to label this part. This is the only part that we care, because now we have the full context, right? So now this is the only part that we care. So where do we start the count? Well, now we start from this low. And where is that? Well, we will have to move to a weekly chart, because it will be a lot easier to look at it in a weekly chart, right? So remember, we go from the low of the wave 4, that is in October 2022, right? So we go to the weekly chart, and here it is, the 4th with the October 2022. And from there, we start labeling again the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, and the 5, still in progress, apparently, right? So notice that we have 5 waves already. We have the 1, we have the 2, all right, we have the 3, and we have the 4, and the 5 apparently in progress, which it looks at first look, it looks like this is the 105, 205, and the 305 still in progress, right? So now we have to count from here. So again, same question, where do we start our count? Well, from this low. Why? Because this is the significant low that we care about. Because the rest, we already know the answer. Now, the real answer here is what's happening next. And so we take it from here. And in order to do that, well, we move to a lower time frame. Could that lower time frame be a 2-day chart, a 3-day chart, a 4-day chart, a daily chart? It doesn't matter. Okay? What matters is that we go to a chart where we see the structure the best. In this case, I use a 2-day chart. Well, let's go for the daily chart. It doesn't really matter. So now on the daily chart, we'll have to squeeze it a little bit more, right? So in the 2-day chart, it was a lot clearer because we have the 4 right here. Yeah. So from here, we could start labeling this as a 1, 2, maybe 3, 4, and the 5 again in progress. So now we could move to see if this one is complete or not, right? So we are assuming that if this is 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5 is forming. This is a 105, and we have 205, and 305, 405, and 505. Is it possible that we get 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Sure, it is possible, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to know where do we start the count. The point now is that we have a 1, 2, 3, a potential 4, and we want to find the wave 5 when we want to find where it ends. So we need to start counting from this low, right? So where do we go then? Well, let's use a smaller time frame. What is that smaller time frame? It could be 8 hours, it could be 6 hours, it could be 7 hours, it could be 500 minutes. It doesn't matter. You use the time frame that best shows you the wave subdivisions. So I'm going to use the 6-hour chart here to see, and here's where we want to be starting, right? From this low here. So let's start from there, and we can see that actually I have it already labeled. We have this 1, 2, then where is the 3, 4, and 5? So we have 5 waves there. But again, 5 waves of what? Well, we believe it's a wave 1 of 5. So now notice the difference. Now we could count 5 waves, but we know 5 waves of what? Now we are not thinking 5 waves of wave 1, 5 waves of wave 3, 5 waves of wave 5, 5 waves of wave A of a zigzag, 5 waves of a wave C of a zigzag, 5 waves of wave C of a flat. Now we are not thinking in those terms. We know exactly where we are within the whole market structure. And so now we have context as to what to expect. So here, sure, we have several possibilities. We can use a 4-hour chart and be more, here's a 4-hour chart. And well, you can see this wave 1, 2, and 3. So wave 3 must also display 5 waves, right? And you can see them in small circles. These are micro waves. So you can see 1, 2, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of 5 of 3, 4, and 5. So from here on, well, this is a discussion for perhaps another video, but the important thing now is that how do we know where to start our count? And I think after seeing this video, you probably have it absolutely clear, because sometimes It is extremely obvious. What is a significant low? What is a significant high? Sure. But the question missing there is in what context? And now you know that a significant low or a significant high must give us the context in which it is significant. So you could see, for instance, how when we were looking at the monthly chart, we were ending up looking at this wave 5, and then we went to a weekly chart, and then we were looking at this wave 5, and these were the subdivisions of that one, right? And then we were looking at the daily chart, and now we are looking at this wave 5, and then we moved to a smaller time frame, and then we were looking at this wave 5. So, and now we know exactly where we are within the market context, and we know exactly where to start our counts without the doubts. Should I start from this low, or from this low, or from this low? You see, when we have this logic behind, the answer is absolutely obvious. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned a lot. And I thank you for the questions that you sent me in the community, because that gave me materials to create this video. And if you continue asking questions, I'll continue creating videos that answer your questions in the clearest way possible. Thank you so much, and don't forget to leave your comment, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, like the video, of course, to help the algorithm to show it to other traders that want to learn the wave principle as well, and to help us as well to grow and bring more viewers. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video.